this is Alex from First Figures.
Hey everyone, this is Chuggles.
Who do we have here? Cowboy Bebop, Spike,
Spiegel!
Hey! Finally, Chocks. Cowboy Bebop, part of our initial anime offerings. You know, anime is something new for us to a certain extent, and really excited to continue our anime offerings with, of course, something so iconic from the Cowboy Bebop statue series. And of course, that is kicking off with Spike Spiegel.
That's right, first in the line.
First in the line. So if we sort of go a little bit of history behind the whole anime over here at First Figures, of course, we've predominantly been known as being a video game company, but in recent years, we've decided to sort of
branch out
into anime, and we started that off with One Punch Man, with Saitama, and then of course we went into Samurai Champloo with Mugen and Berserk Guts, of course. And this is the fourth in our anime offerings, Spike Spiegel, Cowboy Bebop. Now, if you talk about iconic characters from anime, you know, this is 20 years. In fact, it is the 20th anniversary of Cowboy Bebop right this year. So
perfect timing.
Yes. Perfect timing. That's sort of really conjuncts with when we wanted to actually launch it. So it was only just earlier this month, Jocks, to sort of celebrate that 20th anniversary for Cowboy Bebop. So here we are, Jocks.
That's right.
It's been a long time in coming.
A long time, but for those guys that's just watching the video right now, it's probably their first time, so it's not much of a wait for those. But for us, it's been a very long time.
And that's because we feel that we're known, as I said, for video game stuff. With anime becoming more of a thing for us as we're going into it more deeply.
Yeah, so this is kind of new for everyone, really. Yeah, so
exactly.
even for the gamers, the game statue collectors, this is new for them as well.
That's right, absolutely.
So guys, thanks for joining for our anime documentary. And if you have no idea what this is, well, this is all about Cowboy Bebop. So an hour-long documentary going through some of the questions that you guys ask us in the Collectors Club. We have a Facebook Collectors Club, official Collectors Club, and in there we will post a post in there asking you guys, do you have any questions with regards to processes, the making of, how we get to from A to B, etc, etc. Any questions that you guys ask us, we will answer in this, well, we'll pick and choose some of the questions from that post, and we'll answer in this documentary. And in there, again, there will be some shout outs which I'll explain a little bit further in the documentary.
Right, and I didn't know you could predict the future. If it's an hour long, we'll have to...
Generally, I mean, we've done this, I don't know how many times now, about 20, 30?
Something like that.
Yeah. So guys, do check us out. If you're an anime gamer, anime lover or a gamer, do check out the rest of the documentaries that we have.
Yeah, sure. Why don't we give it a bit of a spin, Jocks?
Yes.
Boom.
Why ask me? Why you got the control?
I need your permission to give it a bit of a spin. So as we sort of watch Spike turning Chocks, I believe, as you said, we have some questions from the club. Why don't we use that to sort of...
That's right. And if you have any other questions, do ask in the video below. Just add the questions in there, and we'll have someone in the on YouTube to answer some of those questions for you as well.
Right.
All right. First question from Akimi Yukimura. What made you decide to start the Cowboy Bebop line?
So, you know, we definitely felt that for video games, we kind of got to the point where we were so blessed to get a lot of these very high profile licenses, and we felt that we wanted to really look at anime. We felt there was quite a lot of sort of crossover between anime and gaming, and wanted to sort of branch out a little bit into that. And one of the things that I had done, we had run a poll on Facebook, basically just to sort of say, hey guys, what licenses would you guys be interested to see if we were to do anime? And one of the licenses, of course, was Cowboy Bebop, and it was something that we paid attention to. So when we, back in 2016, 17, we sort of sat down and we said, you know, what licenses, if we're going to be going into anime, should we be looking into? We looked at what the poll results were.
Yeah, that's right.
And then we reached out to Sunrise, and we were quite fortunate. I think it was because we were already working with Bandai Namco with regards to some of the Dark Souls stuff and Tekken and Soul Calibur and that sort of line. Sunrise is owned by Bandai, and we got some contacts via that and reached out, and yeah, basically that's where it was. And I can remember, I think also something that we wanted to sort of do was to do these characters in 1/4 scale. Now there's typically for an anime kind of product, they don't normally come in this sort of size chocks. It's only sort of recently that it's sort of beginning to be a little bit more, I would say, a little bit more on the market, but generally it's usually more sort of smaller scale. In your experience,
yeah, I mean, before you jump into that, I mean, that's a very good backstory, guys. I mean, first time anime members in the club. You know, that little short story of how you started from working on games and moving to the anime side of it through contacts within that same area, which is quite interesting because, like you said, gamers, they're accustomed to games, and some games go translate pretty well into anime.
Absolutely.
And then it'll be interesting to like after this launch, if the popularity of Cowboy Bebop, maybe a game will come out later on. Who knows? I mean, that's quite an interesting thing, an interesting take.
Right.
But as you were saying about the scale of things, yes, there's not many in my recent years of collecting. It's rare that you see officially licensed quarter scale statues, anime-wise.
Right.
Usually, for many years, it's tend to be kind of 1/12, 1/7, 1/8 PVCs when it comes to anime collecting.
Right.
Yeah. So
I think this is going to be quite, how shall I say it, quite new for a lot of collectors. First of all, who are new to us as a company, but also new to this kind of style and size as an anime fan, because it's just generally not available in the market. So, you know, at first, for many, hence we're first for figures, what you see is what you get.
Yeah, I mean, on the screen here, it might look relatively big, but you don't know how big it is until it's actually in your hand. So later on in the video, we'll go through some of the comparisons, etc., for you guys to see the different scales.
Right. Yeah. That's for sure. So, what made you decide to not go back to the question? What made you decide to start on the Cowboy Bebop line? The answer is, well, definitely for us, a lot of we're so blessed that we have a really active community. Go and check out the Official Collectors Club on Facebook from First for Figures, and you'll see that there's many people requesting different licenses, and we also run these polls, as I was saying, anime polls that we ran back when we were looking actively for the first wave of licenses in the anime space. Cowboy Bebop is a classic, and certainly we find that our collector base is usually those that, how shall I say, grew up with certain properties, be it video game, be it anime, whatever it may be, and 20 years this has been going on for. So, you know, it's a long time for them to have this kind of demand for something that, quite frankly, there wasn't quite a lot of merchandise for, you know. And definitely that influenced us deciding to get the licenses in the first place, or at least trying to get the license. It was tough going, but we got there as well.
Different fields of industries are kind of quite tricky.
And also, video game licensing and anime licensing, there are some differences between the two. So, you know, once you do video games, it's kind of quite straightforward the way it's done. But anime, it involves a little bit more understanding at the time. Of course, a bit more seasoned than we were a couple of years ago, at least in anime licensing. And you know, it's just great to finally be here at this stage.
Right. Okay, next question from Kevin Morgan. What are the main differences so far working with anime companies as opposed to game companies?
Well, I think, you know,
kind of
that's great.
Perfectly
That
the previous
does.
question.
I didn't plan that at all, did I, Jocks? And the difference is, well, first of all, if we talk a little bit more about licensing-wise, I'll just give a little bit of a sort of overview. Usually video games is really based on the publisher has the license and they have the ability to license it accordingly. Now, video anime, and this is a bit of a general thing, this is not particularly for this one in particular, but a general point of view, anime usually, Chocks, comes from a manga. The manga rights and the anime rights to the same license can actually be with different licensors, and you have to be specific about what the rights you're going for. Are you going for the manga rights? The licensing rights for the anime versus the manga, they're different. And also territory-wise, it's actually quite split up quite a lot. usually with video game companies, you can kind of go, right, I would like to have this kind of deal and it covers these countries. You can kind of work that, but it's actually a lot more tricky with anime. Now, fortunately for Cowboy Bebop, it's not quite the same. It wasn't based off of a manga, and therefore you're not having to deal with the rights. The committee is a little bit easier to deal with, whereas you find out with other licenses from animes, usually they have to go through a committee where you have the people that are from the anime side, the manga side, the creator, all that sort of stuff is formed within a committee, and it's much more, how should I say, it's a lot more people that look and review it in that style, I would say. So that's kind of one of the licensing aspects that's different that I've found between anime and video game companies. In terms of actually making the statues themselves, of course, it is pretty difficult, and we'll go into the next question a little bit later on. But in terms of the differences, I think that's really what it is. I think it's also the fact that the anime stuff really has to consider that there are so many different people in that. It can lead. As I said, experiences between licensors of video games can vary very, very, very greatly as well. And with anime, I think it's probably even. Would it be more so? I'd say maybe slightly more so, but.
Just more steps involved.
Yeah, more steps involved, I would probably say. But, I think it's definitely, in terms of the differences, there's similarities, but there are certainly those sort of differences that I sort of picked up on. I think it's mainly to do with the introduction of anime with manga as well. I think that's probably a difficulty. The differences, I should say. Difficulty, though, we can get into that in the next question, Charles.
Right, next question from Brendan Rostello. How difficult is it translating an anime to a 3D statue?
So this is tough. Really, really, really tough. And it was almost like going back to school, Charles.
That's good.
Well, let me say...
We learn something every day.
Let me say that there are really... If we sort of go over and look at some of the anime figures that we've made in the past, I said at the beginning of the documentary that we started off with the Saitama, Mugen, and Guts were the three licenses and characters that we've done from the anime lines, and then obviously Spike as well. Now, the development time of these means that there's a lot of work of these that are done simultaneously. So whilst we were working on Mugen, we were working on Spike, or Jet Black from the Cowboy Bebop, or whatever it may be. You're working on them simultaneously. You start in the 3D stage, and it's learning about the anime style of figure that we had to learn over again. And when you make a video game character, it's really going to look exactly like it is in the video game. And the beauty of something like that is it's incredibly consistent based off of a 3D model. You're trying to recreate a 3D model in 3D, meaning there are certain logical aspects that you do not need to consider. If the nose from the front is here and the nose from the side is there, from the side is in that same location, it will, in a 3D space shot, be exactly the same, right? Because it's a video game and the video game itself is in 3D, the character is not all of a sudden, when you turn your head from the left to the right, all of a sudden the nose is not going to go up a bit, or it's not going to go down a bit, or the eyes themselves will go up or down. Totally different for anime. There are really huge inconsistencies between the height of the nose in that scene versus that angle. That simply is kind of inherently a kind of feature or kind of styling. Maybe not styling is the word, but you can sort of understand that when it's all hand done. That whole idea of the fact that logically from this angle the nose is this location, but from that angle, oh whoops, it's at a lower location. Then the question is, which one do you follow? Do you go from the one from the front, from the side? Which is the one that you follow? And that really is a issue that you have throughout the entirety of making anime statues that you really don't have with video game stuff, because as I said, video game stuff, the 3D is the 3D. It will make a logical sense. When you view it from this angle, when you view it from that angle, as long as you can imagine, Charles, when you view something from the front and you view something from the side in a logical 3D video game character, when you view it from a 3/4 view, it should make sense, because if the nose is on that, if the nose is like this and the nose is like this from these two different angles, when you look at it at a 3/4 view, it should make sense. Not so with anime, and that's because from this angle the nose is here, and from this angle it's difficulty. So that's one aspect of the difficulty of translating anime from the anime source into the statue. But it's not just that, Jocks. It's not just the inconsistencies between each frame. It's also the styling. The styling itself, it would be really, there's a huge difference between a face that you have of a realistic face, or trying to recreate something from the video game. But anime human faces, or sort of anime styling themselves, have a very distinct look. And the reason is, of course, as you know, Charles, when you watch an anime, tell me about some of the details that you see on the frames. For the nose, for example.
The lines, yeah? We're talking about the lines?
Right.
Yeah.
It's literally, the nose is sometimes not even there. Or it's simply a dot, or it's, well, what do you give it?
Well, it's definitely a flat surface. It's just drawn differently. So like I said, 2Ds is going to be it's going to look differently whatever angle you look at it, different frame.
Yeah, but what I mean is, that's for sure, but what I mean is, in terms of the lack of detail, a lot of the anime stuff is you're kind of forced in your mind to fill in the blanks. Because there is no nose structure, for example, when you view it from the front. Sometimes it's just literally maybe the shadow of the bottom part. You might sort of see a little bit of that. You might see a single line that represents the nose.
Right, and then it'll be just shading that represents the kind
if you're lucky.
The shading to give it off.
If you're lucky to get shading.
The impression of
sometimes you might even get the shading. And the moment that you are designed with the task chocks of trying to create something in the physical form that people conceptualize themselves, because their mind is filling in the blanks, is the moment that it becomes that more challenging. And when I say it becomes that more challenging, it's easy that when I see that kind of the face of an anime character, you might have a different impression of what that might look like when you're filling in the blanks. So that's definitely something that is tough to do, and it's really something that we had to sort of focus on. And when Brendan is asking the difficulty of translating that into a statue, that just gives you some sort of idea. So we had to really understand the styling of anime. Once we've gone through the process of doing Saitama, going Mugen, etc., I think Guts was slightly different. It was a little bit more human, realistic kind of look. But the kind of stylized version of Mugen and Spike and Jet and all that sort of stuff really came about trying to fill in those blanks in a consistent manner. So anime faces, for example, it's much more about planes. Front and sides are quite distinctively flat. So if you take a look at the face of Spike, it's here's the front of the face, and there's no real curvature of the face. It's kind of flat, and that's really kind of a little bit of that kind of styling of it. Likewise, for example, you don't quite create the realism of things like skin pores or anything like that kind of stuff. You don't really have that. How do you show age on a character, for example? If it's a realistic character, okay, wrinkles, crow's feet in the eyes, that's a sort of really good way to more sort of sagging flesh on the face to kind of give more jowls, kind of to give an impression of age. That's really normal because that's how we perceive humans as people get older. We recognize that in people. With anime, it's really different. For example, did you know that the way they do age is to do with the length of the face, Chubbs? Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
The younger you are, it's more of a shorter face, and then it kind of gets longer and longer and longer. So trying to get Spike's age into this kind of style without having the ability of using wrinkles and all that sort of stuff to get that right age really involved the length of the face and all these sort of tweaks that really had to, you know, to go back on that. I think it was really difficult to get that just about right, Jocks. It really was. Cool.
Right. That question's done, yeah? Next question from Brenton Friedley. I love the static pose for this line as it saves room and it works for this line very well. Are you planning on keeping them all the same static pose?
So that's a great question. So when it comes to the posing of this, we really envisaged the entire Bebop crew and how they would look next to each other. And I think it made sense that they would be consistently in this kind of, we'll call this a museum pose. That's the understanding. And a museum pose is really more about the character itself. He's not doing something dynamic. It's a styling of museum styling where it's like a, can you imagine like going to an exhibit in a museum? You would kind of expect someone who sort of, Madame Tussauds, right? You've been before, Jocks?
Yeah.
That is what we kind of call a museum pose, sort of standing there doing a kind of, sort of standing kind of pose, we call it the museum pose. And it made sense when you considered there was different things to consider. And you know, Brenton himself has actually talked about one thing. He's talked about the size of the space it's taking up and the room size as expected. Earlier on in the conversation, we talked about how 1/4 scale statues is not really something that you see out there in the marketplace, Jocks. Would you agree?
Right. Okay.
If you're an anime collector of statues or PVCs, as we said, we're talking about maybe this sort of size, would you say?
Yeah, so it varies between 1/7, 1/8, 1/6.
Right, so we're sort of within this sort of height, right?
Around about 12 inches.
Yeah, something like this. Yeah. With the understanding that with a new license like Cowboy Bebop, with any new license that we do, it brings new people to sort of discover us. And that's one aspect. Video game guys can kind of maybe have had more exposure to this, maybe because we have so much more history of making video game characters in this sort of size. But when you expect a lot of new people to discover us that are anime fans, Cowboy Bebop anime fans, who discover us and maybe have a collection that is more focused on what's the typical anime statue offering, which you just said, between the 1/10 to 1/6, that sort of size, they might be quite shocked at just how big this is and kind of think, wait a sec, how would this fit in my collection? And you know, if it was maybe one character and it had something that was slightly more, should I say, intricate with the sizing of the base and slightly bigger, whatever it may be, they might think, okay, it's just one character. But when they consider that this is the crew of the Bebop crew and they want to consider the line, it will become more of an issue. And we really wanted to take that into account when actually designing the overall pose and the overall space saving aspect of it. And that was actually one of the things, Jocks. It was the actual space saving aspect was quite a higher factor in the design process than it was for other video game based characters. If it was more of a video game based character, I think we would probably not have it as much of a factor, more of a, should I say, of an influence on the actual design process. Do you know what I mean, Jocks? And can you imagine then, how would this fit amongst someone who is an anime collector of these sort of statues to sort of see this? Do you think that logic makes sense, Jocks?
Sure. Yeah. Space saving, right?
I love the monosyllabic, chops of the day.
Yes.
And definitely that, going back to Brenton's question, it saves room. It works out well for the line.
Like I said, it saves room because, like, you guys won't know, but we've seen, the other characters in development, and having them side by side, it would make sense because we couple of statues ahead. So we can see and understand where that character is bigger. For example, Jet Black is bigger, but it's still consistently looking very nice as a set.
In terms of the footprint as well.
That's right.
I love it, Chocks. A bit of life.
That's much easier to understand, right, guys?
Sure, and I guess that's something that to sort of say. Of course, there is.
So I don't want to give too much details away, but having the next characters lined up, it would make sense when you consider that it's not just a one-man team here. There's like 5 character in a team.
There you go.
So you can imagine that further down the line.
Oh, and an I would be 1, so 4.
Right, but it'd still be 5
sure.
overall if it went all the way to the end. You can imagine them set along the shelf.
Well, 4. There's 4 in the group.
Right, but if you consider.
And then you add a 9 on 1. Yeah, but then what would we do afterwards? Julia, Vicious. All these.
Who knows?
Well, I mean, the point is, it allows for a sort of, how shall I say, a very consistent, a very sort of, what's the word, uniform display.
Yeah.
A very, very uniform display. And consistent is the word.
And we'll probably go through that a little bit later because you can tell from just looking at the base.
Right. In terms of the floor plan and the footprint and all that sort of stuff, I think that's absolutely right. So yeah, Chocks, now it's time to really, with Brenton's question, to talk more about the actual pose itself rather than the sort of space-saving aspect of things. So boom, I'll let you shine right here. What do you see in terms of the way he's standing? And because he's not just standing there. What can you sort of see from the pose that you see from here?
Well, just by looking at this, you got to understand the character himself, right? He's very, he's in a very cool, very smooth pose, kind of like, not relaxed, but still relaxed because his hand's in his pocket. But he's standing there, foot forward, kind of like I'm waiting for you, or just like kind of like laid back with a cigarette in his mouth. So it's not meant to be an action pose. It's more of a static pose, but at the same time, it does give off. It's telling a story, telling the characters, explaining what type of character he is.
Personality in the pose,
that's right.
No matter what the pose is essential to giving the impression of the character. You absolutely picked that up, Chocks. He is this kind of aloof, really cool bounty hunter that has the ability to take you out. And that is kind of to do with the fact that he's holding a gun, he's in a very relaxed pose, as you just said. He's got his hand in his pocket, and he's got his, it's almost like he's kind of like almost sort of waiting, or he's doing what he's want with the way that this leg kind of bends in. He's got a really kind of relaxed pose. And one of the things is, I'm just going to give a bit of a stuff of that, is if you actually look at him straight down, Chocks, do you notice how it's not just completely, he's not completely straight. He's got a kind of, from here, you can almost see a kind of arch.
Yeah.
A kind of arch where this part of the lower leg, it kind of tilts forward, and the part at the back counterbalances it by arching back a bit. It's kind of like, well, I can't do it as well. I can't quite do it as well as Spike can, but you have that, can you see that kind of bending in there?
Yeah. Looks like he's leaning forward, but with his upper torso is leaning back.
Right. So if we see it from the other side, you can also sort of get it as well. Even more so with the way that the leg is bending forwards, right? You can sort of see it a little bit more. And if you look at the way that his body is, can you see, Chocks, that his body itself is not straight
on this angle.
Exactly. Which side is angling forward?
So it's angling to one side because of the bend from his right leg, but it's also angled that way.
Exactly. You can see his left shoulder is backwards and his right shoulder is forwards as he's holding it upwards, because his hand is like pulling back into his pocket, lifting his arm up. He's kind of got that kind of turn as he's leaning as well. All of these small different aspects of the pose itself that really, I hope you guys can pick up on it. It's not just simply standing straight and that's it. That doesn't give any personality. This doesn't give the feeling of how Spike is so laid back and relaxed. And the fact that he has the cigarette as well kind of emphasizes that as well. It's very relaxed, but any time can take you out. And And that's the kind of feeling that we really wanted to give when making that pose itself, Jocks. And what do you think, Jocks? Can you see that aloofness in it?
Yeah,
that
like
kind of...
when people say it's a static pose, it's more than just that. It's not just like standing straight, arms to the side. There are some slight movement there. You can picture him kind of like walking forwards slowly, like,
or even just waiting, even just...
Yeah, it could be both. I mean, it's like it could be walking. It depends on how you look at it. But you know, yeah.
Even the head itself is not straight. It's slightly...
Well, it's angled.
Yeah.
It's angled slightly tilted.
Yeah, exactly. And that really sort of helps with that whole, and sort of breaking the line. Breaking the line of symmetry is really important. The way things look stiff and static is when you just simply are kind of robotic and you just kind of like, boom, just like that. That's my symmetry pose, right? Head cock, arm forward, arm back, so shoulders forward, shoulder back.
Yeah.
Rotating the, bending of the arch on the side, bending the arch on the back, and, you know, of course, having all of those things together gives a really kind of, as we say, that kind of cool pose that you really need to kind of understand and see those things in real life. I mean, hopefully you guys can now see it. Now we pointed it out, you go, oh yeah, I see what you're talking about now. And just a little bit of understanding about, sometimes you can sort of see something and you can go, you know what, it's like the uncanny valley. If you look at something and it doesn't look quite right, you can see what it doesn't look quite right, but you don't know what it is about it. Hopefully you look at this and you go, you know what, it does look like a very relaxed pose and very, not relaxed is the word, natural pose that doesn't look stiff and it has that flow to it. But you can't understand why it has that flow, and hopefully having heard a little bit more of our explanation on why it's like that and some of the different areas of how it's standing gives you a bit of more of an understanding of exactly how it is and why it is, and just like that as well. So yeah, Chucks, the finger itself, what do you notice? There's a finger next to the gun.
Right.
And
that finger, yeah?
Yo, that finger, his index finger on his right hand. Now, one of the things that we didn't want to do is have it, well, so what is it doing first?
They're holding the gun, pointing right. They're not actually on the trigger.
Exactly.
The side of the gun.
If you have your finger on the trigger, what are you doing with it?
You're about to shoot something.
No, you must be shooting it.
Yeah.
Safety. Gun safety.
Does what he wants, right? A bounty hunter.
So true. But if you've got your finger on the trigger, you should be pulling it. Otherwise, it should be to the side, or it should be, should not be doing that. Shout out to Bang giving me some gun safety instructions there. But yeah, definitely that's one of the things we wanted to make sure that he didn't have his finger on the gun, because that kind of doesn't make sense unless he's like pew pew, he's like celebrating. But
okay.
The finger off the gun, meaning that anytime you could just lower it down, bang. And yeah, that's definitely something that's part of the pose that we should touch up on, of course, is the fact that the finger is off the trigger, and that when you're putting the trigger, it's on it. When the finger's on the trigger, it must be pulled. It must be pulled. All right, Chocs, is there anything else you want to add to the pose at all?
No, not one.
No. All right, cool. A bit of a spin. All right, next question.
Next question from Jeremy Beerson. We know there's been extra stitching added to the suit scene to help flesh out Spike in a 3D space. Were there any other details added for this purpose?
Okay, right. It's time to talk about the details, Chocs. Why don't you take a top to bottom sort of look, and then one of the
we'll
things.
get back to Jeremy's question.
Yeah. Well, you'll see it when we're talking about
where the extra stitching went.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So so most important, as you're a collector, as you know, is the head sculpt. I hope you guys believe you can see Spike, resembling Spike here, this statue. We spend a lot of time on the hair. It's like
why don't we talk?
Hair.
Let's talk sculpt and then let's talk paint. Let's do it in two parts.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. So sculpt-wise,
that hair,
yeah, wavy all over. Again, it's sort of like translating that from 2D to 3D. We spent a long time on this because on the anime, a lot of the style is very simplified. All you see is just kind of one shade. of color, or maybe a couple shades of color, and then it just
Has a
single
silhouette.
line. Yeah.
Silhouette.
Yeah, single line. So, obviously we wanted to add details to this statue, but not going over the top with it, because we still want to keep it simplified, just like the anime.
Right.
Where you can still look at it from a distance and look, that looks like an anime character, rather than going for the realistic and just changing the whole style.
Right.
Right. So this is where we'll talk about the color later on, why it looks as it is now.
Right.
But for sculpt wise, we added a lot of hair, wavy hair, and the way it goes.
Do you know? Wait, I'm just shaking my head and remembering. Remembering the paint. I'm just remembering the paint.
Right, but
I mean, some of the things, for example, this part of his hair is lower than that side of his hair.
No, the right side of the head, the hairpiece, right?
Right.
Is low on that side.
When you look at them in the anime, that's how it is.
Yes.
Except for sometimes it's the other way around. I'm like,
it's like flipped.
first of all,
Flip frames.
let me just say I'm totally jealous of his hair. I spent a lot of time working on their hair, but also I'm totally jealous of his hair. But what a really cool and unique hairstyle that has. But it was really tough. The hair of the sideburns versus the hair on the top versus the hair at the back of the neck, all of those have very, very specific directions. Like how do you notice with the hair on the sideburns, Chocks? What kind of angle is it going down? It's sort of, how's it going?
His sideburns.
Yeah.
Well, going forward.
But they're going sort of down. Is
Yeah,
the point,
going
right?
down.
They're sort of
Yeah.
connected to the hair. And he has a sort of two-part fringe, Chocks. Can you notice that?
That's right. I was going to go back to that.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Whereas
Yeah.
at the top bit, the hair kind of goes like that, because we spent ages on that, like that, and then on the bottom bit, it goes like that. So they go in two different directions, like, right?
And you can see that
Yeah.
there's a center, there's a sort of line, a parting, where this part is very slightly lower than this part.
That's right. Yeah.
Really, really subtly, and it's not just, oh yeah, it's sculpted. It was like, okay, this needs to be very, very slightly different, and hopefully you guys, when we point this out, can recognize that. It's the hair directions that was so important, where the parting of the hair was.
Not just the center bit, is the kind of like the undercut, the underside, where it goes back to the other
Exactly,
direction
it's
as
like
well.
the top of the mushroom, the under part of the mushroom, right? And as we said, we'll talk a little bit about that fringe, Chocks. You're sort of talking about the two part of the fringe.
Yeah, here you can see the top part there, the bigger piece at the top, and then just above, along the forehead. Yeah.
You can sort of see how it's the lower part is going downwards to give him that fringe, and then on top of that, it's giving him that mushroom bit.
Gives extra layers and extra lift.
Yeah.
It's almost like, how does he get that hair in perfect shape every day?
A lot of hairspray.
A lot of wax. Yeah. Hairspray.
Real cream.
Yeah, so it's definitely one of the highlights, sculpt-wise, for the hairpiece. Yeah.
Definitely. It took a lot of time and effort to get that just right, and we went through many
Getting the right
different
shape.
shapes.
Like I said on the anime, it looks like it's going in that direction.
Right.
Big chunk of the hair is going the other direction, but yeah, I think we kind of nailed it on this one.
Yep.
And then, most important, facial features. Every single part, like even the ears, what would it look like in 3D? So we went through all that, as always. And then the eyes, most importantly the eyes, giving it life, giving it soul. Because again, in the anime, there's always different expressions, but again, it complements the pose. We've got to give him a cool laid back pose. The eyes has to kind of like...
And have a look at those eye directions. He's not just looking straight, is he? What I mean by that is, he's not...
He's got like puppy dog's eyes, right?
What I mean is, his head is very, very slightly angled down. The head angle.
Yeah.
But the eyes are angled up. So with the combination of the head looking down very slightly and the eyes looking up just a little bit, can you notice the whites on the underneath part, Chocks?
Yeah.
You can see the whites on the underneath, meaning he's looking at eye level. If you're looking at him, he's looking at eye level. One of the things, so if you look at him like this, he's looking at eye level because his head's tilted down and his eyes are tilted upwards. Because if you're just looking, your head straight and you're looking upwards, to see the whites on the underside, you're looking upwards. That's not what we're trying to do. Head down, looking straight, or lifting your eyes up means you're looking straight. So, definitely as you said, the sculpting, all those different areas in terms of the eyes, the ears, even the mouth as well. It's going back to that whole idea of anime and how do you deal with anime. So there's not really any lips. I mean, there's a line and there's some subtle signs that there are lips.
Flat line, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we had to give him some kind of like sculpt on the lips.
But subtle, not like if it was a human style, it'd be like.
Yeah. Because it's still keeping within the anime theme, because the nose, you're not going to get that kind of nose in real life.
Right.
Yeah.
Well.
Or that massive chin.
Not naturally, I would say.
Yeah, so having that, kind of a slight smirk, that cheeky grin.
Right.
Yeah.
It all comes again to that pose. It's all got to sort of make sense and tie together. Every single thing that, in terms of the pose and the eyes and the expression, all needs to play to that personality of Spike.
Right. You got anything more?
No, that's cool.
Let's go.
No.
Right, so let's talk about that suit.
Yeah.
Right, guys. Well, start off with the shirt. I mean, that shirt, how it flares out the back of the collar, down the front.
And it's not like it's been perfectly done. There's kind of.
It has creases on the back.
It has creases on the back. The way it comes up is not perfectly like that. You have some bends in it because it's kind of like, it's worn, it's used, and it has angles on it that you can expect. It's not just straight. So you can see if you look over here, Chucks.
Yeah.
This side is much sort of straighter, and this side flares out a bit more here, and that's sort of to give that kind of. It's almost got this kind of angular look to it, Chucks. So this angular look to it, which is kind of what you expect for a creased shirt, but also just the anime aspect of things with hard lines there. Sort of rounded sort of lines don't really.
It's not just that. I mean, it's pose as well, because like the hand is in the pocket, so
Right.
you're pulling back the jacket, and it drags the shirt with it. So the collar kind of goes in that kind of the same direction.
Exactly right.
The creases, and like I said, that complements with a pose where it's kind of slightly angled because of the hand gesture.
Right.
Yeah. So the suit. It looks kind of plain on the camera, but trust me, there's different shades of shading to give it off that 3D look. Right front, like the jacket front here, the pockets, not the pockets. What's this called here? This section here.
The opening.
The opening, right? And so that's that's sculpted as well. So it has.
It's not a traditional suit.
No.
It's kind of weird. It's got this kind of.
It's custom.
It's almost like a material that comes all the way across like this, but that's then just fallen open.
Yeah.
You see that? So imagine if you look at this part over here, Charles. So if you go from, imagine this part is pulled up over here.
Yeah.
It's like a cloth that comes up here, and then you have these buttons here that then just allow it to fall open, which is what you have.
It's probably the kind of suit we'll wear in the future, right?
Well, if that's the case, I'll be like, see you later, Space Cowboys.
So yeah, I mean, it looks sometimes in the anime very simple color shade of blue, but we added different type shading, different wash to give it a 3D look to it.
Yeah.
There's sculpted lines here, creases, the folds in the actual jacket itself, and then stitchings. This is where Jeremy is asking about the line stitching. You can see really up close how, for example, the jacket flap over here, kind of very light faded kind of stitching.
It's actually one of the things that I actually ran past the club. I said, would you guys think we want to add a little bit of realism to it? And we could have gone full texture, but actually we wanted to have some details like the stitching but we didn't want to go full texture to keep it more in the style of the anime.
Yeah, it's like halfway point. It's kind
Right.
of 2.5D kind of thing. Yeah, so it's keeping it nice and simple, but still having the stitching. It's like the stitchings on his right side are different to the stitchings on this side, because that's on the outer side of the jacket. So the lines on that are different.
What's also important to notice is, of course, as in terms of the anime style, let's talk a little bit about those lines, Shocks, those black lines on that.
Which ones?
Maybe you can't really see it. Yeah.
Yeah,
so all throughout it, basically.
Yeah, all throughout the entire jacket, top and bottom. Even on the boots, you will see these kind of like 2 or 3 individual lines black lines as though they're not like battle worn. I won't say battle worn.
No,
but
it's to highlight the fact that it's coming from an anime and it's kind of using. We talked a little bit about those flat surfaces that you have to give shading to give the sense of depth in anime, but we have the ability. Of course, it is a physical product, therefore it must adhere to the fact that it is 3D in the physical form. But so technically you don't need it. There is, of course, a crease, for example, here, or there is folds in the cloth that is over here that is creating natural shadows. That is also being accented and highlighted by the fact that we're using airbrushes to give it a bit more shadow. Adding those lines is not necessary to show the fact that it goes in. We can see it goes in, but it's keeping with that anime styling, and therefore throughout the whole thing you'll see these little lines that when you sort of see it overall, it's like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. It's right from the anime like that.
Yeah, and sculpt, for example, his left hand going to his pocket. It looks like he's going into his pocket because it bulges out from the front. It's much easier on this side. You can actually see the bulge sticking out. So it doesn't just kind of like cut off.
Right.
And the rest of his hand is in the pocket.
It's not, but it kind of gives
it gives off that
yeah,
impression that it is, because of the bulgeness.
Right. And the way, if you look at the way Chops, you see the sculpt, the way that there's been sort of like a lift up of the material. If you look along the edge of this, jacket, the bottom of the jacket, right? If you look along here, for example, it's really sort of flat. And then if you watch the way it comes up, you go around, you see this way it comes up and over the hand. You see that? The way it comes up. That is definitely something that you have to consider in the real world if you lift it up. And therefore, if you look at the amount of creases that are over this area as it's going into the hand, you have to take that into account. And likewise, when you look at it from the front, those creases really come across all the way. So it's subtle sculpting, sort of sculpting of these folds that have to really make sense from a physical point of view. It's not just, hey, he's wearing a jacket, let's just give him some wrinkles. And the wrinkles need to make sense.
And the wrinkles, the sculpt lines at the bottom are much thicker than the ones at the top because he's pulling back his jacket, his upper torso.
Yeah. And if you look a little bit about the silhouette of the jacket itself, he's got this really kind of like sort of future suit kind of like V-shape going on. But Spike himself, can we just have a look at his anatomy, please? It is crazy. He has like really long legs. And those legs are actually completely different from Spike and Jet. When you see them side by side, Jet has much more normal shaped legs, whereas this is like super thin and super long. I mean, the
world's longest legs.
That is crazy. But it's really similar. Oh, it's just a direct reference from the game. From the anime
style, yeah.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think we didn't really talk about that. That is bonkers. And it's true to the source of it's not just, I just take a generic human character and I'll just make it got a funny mushroom hair and give him a cigarette and boom, that's your Spike. It's not that. Proportions on this is crazy, but it's really true to Spike himself.
Yeah, so again, we have seams all the way with the jacket. And then
the front part, coming up to the back, and then around the collar, the top of the collar.
That's right, yeah.
You got his necktie.
Yeah.
In black. You can see that going around the edges here at the top. Yeah. All painted in nicely by hand. And of course, right down to the front, you'll see that there as well.
And then then his right hand, of course, holding his trusty weapon.
Now, of course, his left hand, you can't tell, but there's fingernails in there. If we were to have a left hand. But we don't have a left hand, but we do have a right hand. And can you tell me, can you see those fingernails?
Yeah, definitely.
And each one of those individually painted.
Yes.
French manicure, baby.
So again, guys, it's
got even the white to the front of it.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I know I got them recently.
The detail on that.
One thing, Jox, we kind of gave up on the whole idea of sculpt versus colouring. Now that we're sort of mixing them together, can we just bring attention to that hair?
Back to the hair.
with regards to the colouring.
Yeah.
One of the things that people would always talk about was that Spike has black hair, and someone go, no, he doesn't. He has green hair. He goes, no, he doesn't. He has black hair.
Back and forth in the club with regards to that.
So we said, hey, why not both? Actually, he has black hair with light, sort of green tinted highlights. And you know, how do I say it? It's kind of hard that you're going to see this. These white lights kind of make it kind of hard to see because it's reflecting all the lighting of that. But there is definitely some that the tips of some of the hairs have enough green on it to go, you know what? It has green tints in it. And you can definitely sort of see it along this area. You know, you can certainly see it at the front. Certainly it's much harder in this lighting to see it, but it's there. And whether or not it needs to be a little bit stronger, that's a matter of debate. You know, we'd love to hear your feedback on that. Love to hear what you have to say about that.
From where I'm sitting, that green is quite strong.
You really are?
Yeah. But if you get up close, there's definitely
oh, there
black,
you can see
there's
it.
definitely a lot of green.
Yeah.
Like
from
this
here you
distance,
can't see it, but if
from
you go
here
back,
because it blends in with the black color so
you see it
so
right
well,
there,
it's really hard to tell.
Oh yeah, you can see it much better.
Yeah.
When you come right up to it. Oh yeah,
there is a
quite
lot.
strong.
Yeah.
But from here you can't see it at all, and there, you really can. So I'm not sure how it looks in the pictures, but you know, one of the things, Chocks, with all of these things, a lot of people were like, you know what? There is no comparison to seeing it in real life. The sort of subtle nuances and stuff, it kind of gets missed. Hopefully the photos sort of can highlight and see that. Of course, the photos are also quite in this sort of studio lighting, so I'm a little bit concerned about that. But there definitely is green. Maybe in the club, check back or take some photos of it in sort of natural lighting to really highlight it.
There is green in there.
There's definitely green in there. Definitely green in there. But overall, you would say it's black, but there are green tints in there, for sure. For sure. So, you know, that's definitely a lot to do with those details and the way that it's bunching up. Can you notice that the way, if you look at the back shots right now, if you look at the back, there's a lot less wrinkles compared to here, right in the crease of the knee area, the back of the knee. All of it has to make sense. It's sculpting with meaning and purpose when it comes to the folds. Has to make sense. Has to make sense. If you go down to the boots, a lovely similar color blue, that's just Spike, it's just him. And you can see the line on the edge? Yeah. Sort of showing you which part is his sole. The sole of the shoe, I should say, yeah. The sole of the boots. And the way you have the creases in the front. This one, of course, remember he's on his kind of tippy toe. If both his feet were completely flat down, then they would look exactly the same, but because this one is bent here, you have some lines there. It looks really nice, it comes up really nice.
Shading on the top part of the boots as well.
Oh, of course. Without saying it, there's shading throughout the whole thing on his yellow, on his clothing. And it's not just one blue with darkened shadings, there are light blues in there as well. There's like 3 different types in there. A base blue, darkening blue, and lightning blues. As well as that, and of course, if you look at his hands and his skin textures on his face, can you notice the shading in there as well?
Shading as well, yeah.
One more subtle thing that is to do with the face is the fact that his eyes. Can you see that the pupils themselves have some very, very subtle different colors of brown? Yeah. One is darker than the other, and that's a scene in the in the anime. Where he talks about that, how one is different than the other. And it's something that, unless you do your research, you won't actually know. So if you look, his left eye is his right, so we're looking on our left. This eye is very slightly lighter blue.
That's brown.
Sorry, what am I saying? Lighter brown than this eye. And that is definitely a distinct, it's come out from doing the research, doing the due diligence and making sure that's the case. And wanted to make sure that you guys know that we picked up on that, because you certainly probably can't see it from this. Of course there will be some sort of, you'll see the photography and what have you, but just to say that we've definitely taken that into account, and more shading, and of course the cigarette itself. It goes to the concept of Spike. It has a slight bend in it. Which is kind of like that kind of vibe of the kind of sort of sharpness or sort of bendiness to
kind
that.
Edgy feel to it.
Yeah, it's not just one straight cigarette, they're kind of semi-bent. And of course, on the front of that, you have the tip of that looking like he's taking a drag on it.
Not a real cigarette, guys.
There's no fumes coming in there, don't worry, you don't need to worry about passive smoking.
Yes.
Alright, Chuck, so we just talked about that.
All the details and the pose.
The cigarette itself, and I think that leads very, very nicely.
All right.
It's not like I didn't plan that one as well.
Oh, you didn't plan that one as well, right? Next question from David Kerr.
Oh, right.
Did you get any resistance from the licensor about including a cigarette for Spike?
Well, there you go, Chuck. Perfectly leading into that.
Mm-hmm.
Not planned at all. So, the cigarette itself, absolutely no comment about not having it or having it. Would you say nowadays, Chocks, you know, if you were to buy a cigarette packet, usually it's all about smoking kills and there's lots of kind of
Advert, well, kind of like
you can't
health
warnings and
warnings
stuff.
on
I believe
it, yeah.
even in the future they don't even let you put your brand on it anymore.
No?
There's been talking about not even having anything on it. Anyways, of course, smoking is no longer the when Spike was created, it was 20 years ago. Social sort of stigmas about smoking nowadays that there is now versus 20 years ago, 30, 40 years ago, you know, it's completely different. The idea of smoking 30 years ago versus smoking now is looked on upon society in a very, very different way. The fact is, 20 years ago, it was probably, certainly it was a lot less sort of social stigma against it, right?
It was laid back and cool.
That's Spike, right?
Yeah.
And as a result, you know, they're smoking, he's a space cowboy, bada bing, bada boom, he has a cigarette in the anime. And when it came to actually making the statue and having a cigarette in there, for us, in terms of ourselves, is that a little bit controversial? The answer is no, I have no issues with doing that. This is supposed to be exactly what you get from the anime, he has it in the anime, therefore it's in there as well. And it never really came up at all with the licensor themselves. So they didn't come back and say, oh, you know, nowadays people shouldn't smoke, don't have, you know, there was none of that. Or if there was, I don't speak Japanese, so. No, but no, the answer is no, there was no comments or anything specific about that. Hopefully that answers your question.
No cigarette manufacturer came up to us and say, you must put our brand on that. None of that stuff. This is like our own branding of cigarettes. So
Indeed, it's like F first for cigarettes,
first
right?
for cigarettes. Right.
Yeah. And you, of course, you know the way that it has the red at the front and the orange at the butt end, we'll call it. Cool.
Right, next question from Jake Mayer. Regarding the images surrounding the base, how were they decided on?
So, have a look at that base. First of all, Chocks, we didn't really talk about the base themselves. We have these beautiful images going around that, and we'll talk about that in
First
just
of all,
one
the
moment.
size is it's a cylinder shape.
Let's now talk about the base in general, and then we'll come back to what Jake's question is. So,
Alright,
go,
guys.
Chocks, go
Yeah,
to you.
so it's a cylinder base, circular, like a film roll. You know, like the old 8mm. Yeah, it's kind of like it's thicker at the top and thicker at the bottom, slightly indented around the edges in the middle part, and at the top part, we're sticking with the same theme. Very simple, very, you know, because the focus is on the character.
100% on the character.
Yeah, because it's a 1/4 character. We want that to be the centerpiece in the room, and keeping this base very simple. But at the bottom, and in the middle, at the bottom, is the iconic logo. Cowboy Bebop in Japanese and in English in the center.
In the center. Well, it's literally the
official logo.
The official logo.
Yeah.
And of course, just a little bit more, just to break off the top, just to give a little bit of detail, a line going around. It just helps give it a little bit more, just a little bit extra to the top. And
it's a matte black, the actual surface, and the logo has a shine to it. It's kind of glossy black. So from a distance, you can see the logo popping out.
That's right, absolutely right. So it's kind of similar to how we've done these sort of styles before. It's a very matte finish with a shine on the actual logo itself, just to give it a little bit more highlight. Jake Mayer was talking about the imagery going around the base. Now, first of all, let's just say this is something that actually came about from people's suggestions in the club. Actually, originally, we had a very slightly different style base. It was a little bit more 45 degrees, sort of coming down like that, and there wasn't any imagery around it. And I'd seen people, when we sort of started showing that we were doing Spike, talk about a bit about that, and I ultimately took that on board, and I made those changes in progress, and we made those changes.
We actually debuted this statue with Jet Black at the C3 in Hong Kong.
That's correct.
When was that?
December.
Yeah, December 2017.
Yeah.
I believe the base was this, and it had a blue trimming around the edge.
Correct.
That was before the images were added on.
That's correct.
Because again, guys, if you watch the intro of the anime, you can see the kind of each character has their own color-coded.
Absolutely right. So Jet, the next in the line, has his exactly the same base. So the footprint is exactly the same, but his has a green strip, and of course he will have his own imagery.
Yep.
We're going to be talking about spikes in just a minute, but I wanted to re-emphasize what you just said, Chops, and it's all about that color. Spike is blue. His scenery is blue. In the anime strip, in the intro, it's all blue. He's a blue character here. He's got the blue around the bottom. It's consistent. I think I'm gonna. How shall I say it? A bit of a bold word. The genius of the base design really starts to shine when you see them together. And you go further down the line. Then you'll be like, you know what? Them F4F boys. Yeah, they're alright.
We save space for you guys.
But still have enough of the anime to really make sure that what we're using, it really highlights that it complements the character. Because at the end of the day, the base should complement the main event. The base should never overpower the main event, and the main event must always be the character. You're buying the character, you're not buying the base. As long as the base is complementary, and the bases can be complementary in a variety of ways, but sometimes you can go overboard with the base and it can look cluttered and take away from the focus of the character. No problem with this. You're not gonna all of a sudden, your eyes are not gonna be drawn to the base first. It's gonna be drawn to the character, then you're gonna go, oh yeah, oh yeah. It's all gonna make sense as a package. At least that's what I think.
That's what you envision in your head.
Right, and there is some mythology, I can say the word, there is some thought process that go behind it that really highlights that whole point. That's where it all comes from. So let's talk a little bit about these reels that's going across here.
Yeah.
He's got a cigarette there.
Cigarette there.
Cigarette there. Cigarette there. Cigarette there. Cigarette there. He's got the swordfish there.
Yeah.
And
different facial expressions. He's
yeah.
looking from the side, looking from the front. He's looking down like 4 o'clock.
You know, the reality is we were given a lot of official artwork to work with, and we were given permission to turn that artwork into this kind of silhouette style to be able to see it against this blue background. Now, when you see it from afar, it just looks like it's a blue strip. But then you go and you sort of see, oh yeah. And I can confirm, guys, there's no green in the hair here, but it's not supposed to have green in the hair in this example. But yeah, going throughout there, we didn't want there to be actual color. It wanted to be blue because you don't want to see it as soon as you see the character. I don't want your eyes to be drawn to.
Yeah.
If this was all colored, first of all, you would start losing the coloring of the blue background or the blue strip. That whole concept of the blue, you would lose that if it was in color.
It'd be distracting as well because the base would be popping out, and then you'd be like,
exactly.
You'd be like, look, you'd be looking down here first, and then going up.
You got it right, absolutely right.
So it's very, very subtle. It blends in with the black of the base, basically. Yeah.
Exactly. Again, hopefully people will understand it so much more when they see Jet next to Spike, and they go, okay, now it's making sense to be consistent.
Maybe in the future, like similar time with time zone, or in the future with Cowboy Bebop, this might be LEDs going around. You can actually see the whole anime.
If we were making this,
if we were still making statues in the future, hopefully technology then has improved a lot.
Are we talking about like 200, 300 years time?
Yeah. It's like this is like, wow, this will be all animated. This statue will be like moving. That'd be cool, right? In the future.
First for real life statues.
We're thinking so far ahead now.
You know, it was really funny because Harvey the other day said to me, "Oh, Daddy," he's 8. Yeah, when you die, shall I keep making the statues in the company? I said, well, Harvey, maybe your kids can start making moving ones.
That's right. Who knows?
I said, Harvey, get your own company.
There'll be first 10 figures as well.
Absolutely.
Right.
All right, Chocks.
Okay, next. Questions, more questions. Ben Carpenter, thoughts on going beyond just the plan 4 and I? Julia Vicious. Oh, wow.
So, you know, I love to keep on going, Chocks. I love the idea of the entire crew going beyond the crew. And
so about
we
support,
will
guys,
keep doing, if you guys keep supporting, we will keep on going. And
maybe not just characters, it could be, you know, the actual spacecraft itself. Who knows? I mean, like, again,
Swordfish, the Hammerhead, all that sort of stuff.
Definitely join the club. Let us know in the club. Let Sunrise know that you guys want more, you know, statues from the line. You know, keep everyone updated. Spread the word out. You know, go to your next convention, anime convention. Do let us know. I mean, where do you want us to go for like anime conventions? Where would you like to see Spike and the rest of the crew? What other anime lines would you like us to work on? Definitely let us know in the comments in the Collectors Club. And we started off the anime line a couple of years ago, and we you know, it's a good learning progress, and we're very interested in keep on growing this line.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right, Chocks, nice one.
Right.
I believe it's over to you.
Measurements.
Yeah.
Right, as always, we start off with Coke can test.
Over to me.
Back to you. Guys, so as we were saying earlier on the video that we do a measurements and comparisons. This is what it looks like compared to Coke cans. These are
330 ml, so for our American family, I need to get some new ones, Chocks. These are looking a bit, a bit rubbish. You guys are more used to 355, but over where we are here, it's 330. I think in the West it's also 330. In the UK it's also 330 maybe. So this is just a shade under. It's about 4.5. 4.5.
4.5, yes.
Yeah. All right. Now, Chocks, over to you.
All right. As always, start off with the height. This is going to be very straightforward here. The height, I have that from the bottom of the base of the tip of the hair piece. That is roughly about 20.5 inches. So that is around 52 centimeters. All right. For the width,
super easy this one, isn't it?
Because right now Spike is within the base. So I have that around about 10 inches, so that's 25 centimeters. And the depth, which is from the front,
will be exactly the same.
From the front to the back, that is also 10 inches, so that's 25 centimeters.
Easy peasy lemon squeezy, that one was.
And the weight of this, guys, this is made out of resin, so it's not a PVC, this is made out of resin. That's 2.44 kg for the weight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So you can put it on sort of glass shelves. Disclaimer, you know, at your risk, but yeah.
That's right. So the face is made out of resin. The actual statue is made out of resin as well. So I just want to highlight that.
I think a lot of it is because he's quite tall, but he's not that chunky. He's very thin arms and thin legs. He's very svelte, very sleek. So he doesn't actually quite have that weight to him that you would imagine. If he was like a normal 1/4 scale guy, I think Jet Black will be he's chunky. Yeah, so there'll be a significant difference there, I'm pretty sure. Cool. Oh, Chocks. We didn't even talk about his gun, and when we're doing all the design, we're talking about all the details. But yeah, you know, it's very accurate to the film, sorry, to the anime, and it's got you know, pew pew.
Shadings, that's right. Different.
It's got metallics and silvers on there as well.
Silvers, yeah.
It's even got the thread, the rifling on the inside. It's even got the rifling on the inside of the tip. Can you see that, Chocks? Yeah.
All right. How deep does that hole go in? Like, how far?
I'm not talking to you about deep black holes here. Okay?
Yeah, I could put my cigarette down there. This is a cigarette.
What do you do
a cigarette holder
in your free time, Chops.
Look at that, I think a cigarette holder, that'd be cool. It's like, pew!
Like those guns, where you like pull the trigger and
Yeah,
a cigarette comes out.
awesome. Or a toothpick. Brilliant.
Now you guys are getting the genius of the sculpt, right?
Yeah.
Alright, Chocks.
Yes.
Shout outs.
Right guys, shout outs. I was saying earlier on, in that club, collectors club that we have, the post that I made for the documentary, within there, I will randomly place a comment saying first 10 folks to reply to that comment will get a shout out from Alex. So here we are, 10 lucky club members.
Alright, nice one. A lot of these guys actually had some of their questions answered as well. Shout out to Jake Mayer. How's it going, mate? The B Kurt. How's it going? John Kuspa. Ben Carpenter in the house. Benjamin Robert Riggs. Tommy Zuriel Svensson. Jessica Cassidy in the house. How's it going? Brendan Rastello. What's going on, mate? And we have the power couple, Cassandra Bennington and James Bennington. Awesome.
Awesome.
Done.
Right. Make sure you guys join our next documentary. Make sure you check out that thread where there will be shout outs as well. And ask us any questions with regards to that particular product.
Sure.
Yeah. Alright guys, so this is the regular version of Spike. So you can see Spike here standing on top of the black base with his right hand holding the gun pointing upwards. And as you guys may not know, apart from the regular version, we also have an exclusive version which is only exclusive to our website, firstfigures.com. So do check that out.
Yeah, that's typically what we do for our statues. We usually have a regular version that can be available perhaps locally or different retailer partners.
Also on the website as well.
Also on our website as well. And we also have an exclusive version, and Spike is no different. We have an exclusive version of Spike. So, Chocks, shall we see what the difference is?
Alright then.
Alright, why don't we show it in 3, 2, 1.
Bang!
Now that's a very, normally it's cool, but it's bang! Check it out, guys. This is the exclusive version. Chocks, take it away. What is the difference right there?
Wow, I think we just kind of gave that away, right? So guys, the right hand, previously on the regular version, is having a Spike holding the gun. That also comes with this exclusive version. So for this exclusive version, you get the gun, and you also get the bang pose. Again, 2 additional arms. In total,
two arms, yeah, one additional arm, yeah.
So I just want to show that there. So this is the gun that comes with the regular version as well as the exclusive version, and the exclusive version comes with this pointing hand.
Just to say that they all come with a magnet inside to help. Very, very easy for changing them. It's literally pop it out, stick it in, and you're good to go.
It's very easy, magnetized again, and it's cut in a way that you don't see.
There's no seams, you can't even
right.
see it, and it really follows the way that the shoulders.
The suit.
Absolutely.
The actual suit cut.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it blends in really well.
Really, really well.
Yeah.
So, of course, Chocks, this is the iconic pose right at the end of the anime. It's not very clear, spoiler alert, right? What happens at the end, whether or not.
It's been 20 years. You're allowed.
Okay. Whether or not he dies or he collapses or what, it's kind of a little bit ambiguous. Now there might be some commentary later on, etc., etc. But it's right at the end, bang. And it's wanted to pay attention to that. Some slight differences, of course. In that scene, he's full of blood and he's got his jacket. But we wanted to pay attention to that because it's quite an iconic scene, but it's also an iconic pose. But it also means other things. It also simply means you. Just simply you. Of course, you have the hand is in a gun position. Like when you can't afford a gun, you're pew pew, right?
Right, okay.
But it's also literally, hey you. Could also be as if he's just like done that. It's the beauty of this pose with the extra hand from the exclusive. It covers a lot of areas. It could be reference to the end of the anime. It could be reference to simply just being cool, relaxed against it, saying hey you. You're next, whatever it may be, just pointing at someone. Of course, whenever you point at someone or point at something, it brings your attention to that. And clearly, what he's focusing on is what's in front of him, which is what is following with his line of sight. Is obviously his eyesight is following in line with what he's. If I just pause that right there, if you look directly where his eye is looking compared to his his hand is all going straight down there. So if we sort of go like that, it's more like, hey you. So this pose
is kind of like slightly angled.
Right, it gives what's the word? The ability to cover quite a lot of ground with that one pose. With the extra exclusive, it really allows you to make all of it what you want. Is it to represent the end of the anime for you? Is it just a cool pose that you want him to be in that can make sense within his personality? That really is up to you. There is no right answer, there is no wrong answer, depending on how you perceive it to be. And that's the beauty of a piece like this. It allows you to really sort of put your own thought into what it represents for you. What it represents for me, and you could be completely different. So yeah, you know, Chog, it's a really good compliment to the piece. And, you know, as we were saying, very, very easy to separate that. And yeah, I mean, in terms of the pose, Chogs, he's not pointing straight forward. He's not pointing straight forward. You can see he has a bend in it. That's more about the kind of like, you kind of raising it up and going like, bang. It's kind of like that kind of coolness. It's kind of that, it gives a little bit more flow, less stiffness, all that sort of stuff. Again, even in the exclusive piece, really has that attention thought about when they're doing the actual, or when we did the sculpt. And if you actually look at the actual bend in the wrist, this part of the hand is completely in line with the finger. So it goes up and then straight. See that? The up and then the bend, and you sort of see it from the other side as well. He raises it up, then he makes it straight. So it's kind of going like that. Bang. Raises it up. The back of the hands as well, you see the tendons going up to the knuckles, the joints, sort of subtle details like that. You can sort of see all of that. See that, Chucks? And again, there's no reason why this wouldn't have fingernails, and it does. With the shading, bada bing, bada boom, pretty straightforward. What you see is what you get. Alright, Chucks, anything to add before we go into measurements on that?
No, done the measurements.
Chucks, you haven't done the measurements for this.
One more measurements for this one. Yes, my bad, yes. Right, so for the regular version, I've already given you that earlier on.
Right, so you have that, yeah.
I've done that for the yes. So for the exclusive, the height is going to be the same.
Yeah.
Right? The only difference here
is the
depth. The height and the width are exactly the same, because the width, with the hand pointing forwards now, that sticks out a little bit from the base, so you can actually see from the side.
Exactly, so you see this comes down to about here.
So I've got that around 11 inches, so that's 28 centimeters.
Alright.
Alright, so yeah, just consider that when you have that on your shelf.
The weight, of course, is I'm assuming it's the same.
The weight should be the same, yeah.
And if you were to display it next to, well, I mean, if you include the extra piece itself, of course, the box will be very slightly different, but you know, not anything sort of significant about that. Yeah, so that's pretty much it, Chocks.
Yes.
Anything you want to add before we wrap this one up?
Hopefully you guys enjoy this, and hopefully if you guys haven't seen the anime, hopefully after looking at this piece, you will go and check that out.
Yeah, definitely.
Because it's been out there for a while, so you should be able to easily find that, and take the time to enjoy the anime, and do check out hopefully the next one down the line. Which we're definitely going to be Jet. Jet Black, he's already done, and it will probably be up for pre-order, I would say, in maybe 4 or 5 months afterwards, depending on the speed that you wish us to release it. So, alright, Chocks, that's another one wrapped up. Cool. Alright then. I'm your host, Alex. And I'm Chuckles.
F4F is love.
F4F is life.
I will see you in the next one. Peace!
Laters!